Well, hello guys, and welcome back to another Genlock review. In this episode, we're taking a look at Season 1, Episode 4, Training Days. And yeah, I figured what was going to happen in this episode, and that basically happened. With that being said, I'd say this is the weakest episode so far. The second half is definitely better than the first. I just have some inherent problems with the first half, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it's not bad by any means, but it does have some problems. A lot of it's kind of lazy, for lack of a better word. So it starts off, it's school days, right? I predicted last time we were going to get a training montage. That's exactly what we open up with. We get a training montage where it's showing like, oh, here's our characters, here's them learning, getting better. Cammy's still the odd one out. She's the worst at combat. That's kind of the point. And meanwhile, while we're getting this training montage going on, we're setting up a bunch of future events. It's basically, they're doing an exposition dump in tandem with the training montage, which is the right way to go about it. Getting both things out at once, because it's a lot of exposition like, oh, this is, you can desync, right? There's uptime, a bunch of other concepts. You can age out of the program. So there's all these ideas that are clearly just set up for future events, some of which will actually pay off in this episode, others that I'm assuming are going to pay off in future episodes. And then there's aging out, which right now seems like a useless detail. I mean, they mentioned that one of the guys from the mech squad aged out, but my wonder is, how is that going to come into play? Unless, of course, in future seasons we're going to have different casts because our old cast is going to age out. That's the only way I can think of them bringing it up. But yeah, they're getting better, arguably. They finally get the armor like we see with Chase and Madrani. So yeah, we get our training montage. It's a fine montage. It's about what I expected. And then afterwards, Chase finally talks to Worth. And it's finally, I was fine with them building up this meeting. And it does completely pay off. This, like I said, a lot of this was exactly what I expected it to be. And on one hand, it doesn't surprise me, but at the same time, it's exactly what I wanted. So I am at least personally happy. Because yeah, there is no big reconciliation here. It starts off with a hey, and hey, we'll see where it goes from here. Maybe I can be something else to you once again, but Worth isn't entirely sure. That's exactly what I wanted. If you've seen some of my other reviews, specifically Star, I'm on this big campaign, the main male and the main female character not to end up together. And I'm kind of starting that here. I mean, at the end of the day, I know in both shows it's a fruitless campaign that is bound to fail. But, you know, a man can dream, and that's what's going on here. I kind of hope that Chase and Worth don't end up together, because there was that whole 4-year passage. Things have changed, and maybe they'll just be friends. I don't know. They can always win me over again. But just their interaction here, I think, was really well done, and it's leaning me in that direction. Plus, I think it kind of makes for a more interesting and less predictable show, even though this is me here literally trying to predict it. But that's half the battle. Then we see Cammy and Migos interact, and she's talking about how, something doesn't feel right in her Holon, and how things are a little bit weird. I don't know if I've said it before, but right now, Cammy's my favorite character. I will admit, half of that is the fact that I am biased towards heart characters, so I do like her in that aspect. But I also, she's the funnier one. She pulls some of the heartstrings. There's a scene later in the episode. We'll get to that. There's a part of me that really wants to like Madrani, but I just can't. There hasn't been enough grounding to her yet, and I'd argue this is Cammy's episode as well. Because Migos explains that the Holons, right, they're robots, but they can be changed. They can have new equipment and all that added to them. This is setting up something that will happen in the future of each Holon presumably being customized to the person using it. Because I haven't really brought it up because I know this change was going to happen. But one of my problems with the Holons is that they're all the same, right? They're all using the same generic armor set, which, I mean, yes, the color distinguishes them, but there's really nothing other than that. But I know, based on the opening scene, right, the intro, that they are going to change and each Holon is going to become more unique, so I've just been holding out for that. Because it's the problem of, it's Pacific Rim versus Pacific Rim Uprising. The first Pacific Rim, each robot, besides for maybe Gypsy and the Australian one, like the Chernobyl one and the, God, I don't remember what the other one called, Typhoon, they all looked mostly different. They all had unique differences that set them apart from one another. Again, the Gypsy and the Australian one looked fairly similar. I want to say Strider. But then in Pacific Rim 2, all the robots basically look the exact same. They're all the same generic design. It's very lazy, and that's one of the many problems with that movie. And yeah, that's technically a problem here that all the Holons look the same, but I know they're going to change it. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but I'm just not... it's a minor complaint, but I know they're going to fix it. So from there, we finally get our first day off. We finally get some time for rest and relaxation as they're able to do whatever they want. And of course, they do the same thing everyone does in this world, go into the ether. We saw the ether in the first episode. I just assumed it was set dressing, which, also in this episode, we find out that the mother and sister, Chase's mother and sister, are dead. Oh, that sucks, man. That's something I didn't want to know. I mean, yes, I did want to know what happened to them, but I didn't want them to be dead. Come on, you've given him enough shit as is. Oh, I didn't want to see that. That hits, man. So they're all in the ether, and we see their different character models, and I like how Cammy's is very different. She's the little rabbit fella. But then everyone else is more or less playing themselves, which is... yeah, that kind of shows the mentality of it, but they're wondering what to do. And they go through a bunch of different costumes. Now, in this scene, I was like, okay, they're in the internet. There's got to be a Ruby reference somewheres in there. I mean, yes, the ether is reminding me of Ready Player One, and I mean, Ruby was in Ready Player One from what I was told. So I was like, okay, there's got to be a Ruby reference. And if they're not, I was like, it's going to be something in the background? Nope. They're not even subtle about it. They literally just, I'm presuming they're all Ruby characters. I recognize the Ruby Rose outfit on Cammy. Other than that, I'm just assuming they're all using this. Those are all outfits from other characters. Again, never seen Ruby. But yeah, I knew that was coming eventually. But for the overall scene, I actually don't like this scene. Because it's a lot of forced exposition. This is just hitting the nail on the head and explaining it, what they were already able to show. I thought they did a good job at showing it. They didn't need to explain it here again. Of course, the one exception is Valentina, and how they use, okay, she plays a male in the game, but it's also her playing male in real life because she's gender fluid. She can both be she and he, and she has been both she and he multiple times. That's actually really clever, and that's literally the only good thing about this scene, is how they do that. Other than that, I feel like all the character development in this moment, the entire scene, even before they go into the ether, everything about this moment feels very forced, trying to get the exposition. I liked earlier when they were able to bundle the exposition with the montage, because it's killing two birds with one stone. But here, it's doing all of these character moments, but it's forcing them into just one scene. It's not that I want it more spread out, but there's better ways to do it than just forcing it all in one moment. You know, show don't tell and all that jazz. But the ether eventually glitches out, and something's happening, right? There's a reason it's going down. And so they're finally called out on their first mission, because the Union is attacking the ether hub in Dallas. Which they say, oh, this is weird because it's not what the Union normally does. Normally they slowly take areas because one of the Union's goals is to get the facilities intact because they need the resources. Again, I've talked about this before, the Union is a nebulous force that just takes whatever it can, and their goal is clearly here, at least they're establishing their goal as resources. So the polity needs to combat them with a Sherman's March. Just burn everything in their way, because the Union cares about resources. So they head down, and we get a fight scene, and it's... Okay, so earlier on, I didn't talk about it, but when Miranda's talking to Chase, she talks about how, oh yeah, Valentina stays behind, Kazu rushes, and Cammy still doesn't know how to handle a gun. I know it's getting the conversation started, but it's completely unnecessary, because here in our opening fight scene, and in our training montage, I guess to a lesser extent, they actively show, and show don't tell. The show did a great job at showing it in this moment, so telling us that exact same information earlier on was completely unnecessary, because here we see all of that. We see Cammy hesitant to use a gun. We see Kazu rush in and do a lot of collateral damage in the process. There's this globe that keeps rolling around, comedy, rule of threes, we see it 3 times. But eventually the polity is able to take back the hub, gain control, because there's not really that much opposition. But then as they're taken back, they're scouting the grounds for anything else, Cammy sees something that's off, and it's a Union haul-on. Of course, the Union has this tech, which, again, this is what I keep talking about. My problem with the Union is they're a nebulous force. They have unlimited resources, and by proxy, they can do anything. So them having a haul-on, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, how did they get it? And we know it's a haul-on because later on we see when it stands up, it grabs its head because that's where it had just been shot. So we know there's a person in it, because why else would a robot react like that? And just look at the design. Duh. So how did they get this? There's a few things. One of my first thoughts was somehow Sinclair's still alive. I don't know. Part of me thinks that'd be neat, but The other idea is because we know Madrani's ex-Union, what if Weller is also ex-Union? And in a stark contrast to World War II, which you can totally put the emulation there, that Weller is our Einstein equivalent, that he was working for the enemy, but now he's working for the polity, right? That's obviously where I see them going at with that. Or, of course, the third option is that Weller is actually the main villain. They could totally do... I don't want it just because I like Weller. But yeah, so we get the scene of this haul-on, and it goes after Cammy, and it beheads her. And this is what I was talking about earlier with Cammy being the heart, and this is a good moment. I give credit to a lot of the voice actress, the sound design, the animation. It all does a really good job at making you feel it. And when the head gets ripped off, it's like, ugh. Of course, she isn't dead. And again, this is what I was talking about earlier with our exposition dump at the beginning. Establishing things that are going to show up in the future. This is it right here. That they only have one mind. And of course, the mind isn't stored in the head, but they don't know that. It's all going to pay off eventually. They're setting it up, and it'll pay off in both this and future episodes. At least if it's good at what it does. But we get a fight scene between them in the haul-on, and I expected them to struggle a little bit, but even Madrani and Chase are kind of getting their ass kicked, which, I know, okay, if they're going to defeat this enemy haul-on, they're all going to have to be able to work together and work as a team. Okay, show, I get... it's a little nail in the head, but I get what you're saying. Don't get me wrong, I expect that to happen at any point, but early on, well, yes, they are able to defeat it. Val's able to shoot it, snipe it in the head, and it retreats for the moment. I didn't expect it to be easy, but I expected, the 3 of them to get their asses kicked, and it'd be Madrani and Trace who'd have to come in and save them, because again, eventually they're all gonna have to learn to work together. But overall, the fight scene is fine. It's got its pacing right. It's clearly, it's got its reversals right. It's got its shots established. I know what's going on at any given moment. So I think it's a fine fight scene. And yeah, it ends with them more, I wouldn't say winning, but the enemy retreating. So they won for now. And then they do this mind share thing that they established early on, Genlock Phase 2, where they're able to share minds, and Cammy's able to see that she doesn't have a head because her mind is stored in the chest of the robot, which, that's practical. Okay, I figured that. And then it ends off with just the commander and Weller sharing a look like they know something's up, and we're probably going to find out that soon, because as far as I know, this show's only, for the first season anyways, only has 8 episodes, which is kind of to detriment of this one episode, because we have to do a lot in this one episode. We have to do our training montage, but they also want to do character development. That's I think because they only have 8 episodes and they can't commit to one thing. They could have spent an entire, at least half episode in the ether, but because they don't have the time, they can't commit to it. They only have 8 episodes, so they have to keep moving. That's why the ether bit is so short, and that's one of my main problems with it. And then, but they also have to establish that the enemy has the hull on. It's a lot to do in one episode, and they kind of screw up a little bit here and there. Overall, I think it's fine. There are definitely some missteps, but it could have been a lot worse. The fight scene does make up for some of the flaws. Again, the one moment with Cammy it does carry the weight it needs to. But from here on out, like I said last time, I was expecting change. I'm expecting more giant robot, even though I love the character drama stuff, and that still holds true. I'm expecting more giant robot in the future. That's our push. We start modding the things. They start getting their individuality. We now have a goal of this evil Holon we have to defeat. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.